Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Greetings and welcome back, everybody, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. And today, the podcast where Kyle and I just kind of stare at each other like we're about to break down, and then we just hug each other and stand there for a while as we hold each other up, wondering what the hell happened.
You're going right into the thick of it, man.
I'm glad I have you, Kyle. I'm glad I have you in my life.
It's a thing. By the way, we should note that this is not the 200th episode. This is a normal episode, of which everyone should be rather excited that it isn't the 200th episode.
Yes, yeah. There's too much to cover today, and we're definitely not just stalling until we get a bunch of confirmed guests from a studio you may have heard of, but nothing's been confirmed, so I can't tell you anything.
No, nothing like that.
Yeah. Definitely not. We're definitely not stalling. We definitely don't have plans for a bombastic celebratory episode, and we definitely aren't hiding anything.
And thank goodness, too, because if we had to do it this week, we would just be ignoring a whole giant shift in everything we've come to know.
Yeah, but it might mean that by the time we get back around to being able to discuss it, that we know what's happening in the world of Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, that's the truth of it, man. This was a rough little video game week.
Oh yeah, man, it was. It still is. It still is. We got a huge patch, and it's the shaker of worlds. I keep saying this, Kyle. It's like every month and a half, I feel like I come to this like, is this 2.0 really? Like, is this it? Is this actually the relaunch of the game? I start talking in a higher pitch as I try to figure things out, because every time you just give it a little bit of a breather, and then everything changes in monolithic fashion, and that's, I think, what has happened once again this week.
Well, and they're tiny changes, of course, but they have these huge ripples. I mean, the big one for me this week was something like the increase in damage to all the structures. I know, and my fellow, particularly a couple of guys I remember, particularly this one, Tracer, knows that they can soak 2 shots and be okay. But when 2 shots becomes 3 shots, you're dead. So Masters this week was a fireworks show of death. Foolish deaths. People betting that they would survive. People sticking to that building for the last 3 seconds because it used to not have an extra 1,000 hit points. We walk such tight ropes in my league of our health and regeneration and support and tankage that any of these things change and everything just falls to poo. It just looks awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, everything I've learned in the last few weeks in terms of how to kind of run the map, it just has fallen out beneath me, Kyle. And you wouldn't think that it had because of the changes, but it was just enough so that everything's happening a little later. And it's just not, there's no cohesion anymore. Or at least we haven't figured out what the new cohesion is.
Right, and when around here, we talk about Hero League in a very casual, do-it-yourself at home. You don't need the mad micro-control way. You don't got to be Genji flipping around like a crazy dude. You don't have to aim your gun like maybe a shooter would. You just have to have game knowledge and make use of it. But when that game knowledge changes, people in our sort of circles and strategy suffer a lot because we're very map control-y people. And when I say map control, too, I'm also saying that I'm a late game player. And oh my God, there is none left. Maybe a little one on Spider Queen. Maybe just a little late game left there. But holy moly, when you go from Nazebo, Sonya Uther kind of metas to just completely throwing that out all away for Sylvanas, Malthiel, Ragnaros kind of metas, it is a switch.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It has changed, and I'm not trying to rush you along here, but I should we just jump in the news? I don't think we need as much of a preamble as we might typically take.
True. We'll probably end up talking about all this anyway, so let's get into it.
All right.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Point me to the stage.
Click the play button, and let's get started.
I specifically used the Uther one because it's the last time I want to hear Uther's voice until we figure things out. Stop picking him, please. Thank you.
I would agree. Oh my goodness.
It's not working. It is not working.
No, in particular, it's not working for me now because people figured out Cassia. I had to fight Special T this week. That dude was a god. Doubled the damage of any Cassia I've ever seen. Which puts her into that sort of like Lunara Gul'dan area of you cannot handle this on Uther. This is too many numbers, which I was not prepared for.
Yeah. There's a bootylicious joke in there somewhere because you said you can't handle this, but I can't find a way to rhyme Cassia with that. So I'm just going to move on. But yeah. I got majorly tilted by a Cassia earlier, but for opposite reasons. For opposite reasons of your reasons. Hey, Blaze is out, Kyle. Blaze is here. He has landed, and I was singing Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. Blaze is here last week. He launched at a 41% win rate.
47 if you make your way over to HOTS, Hits, and other replay aggregate sites. But we're not looking at that sweet above 50, and people were certainly hoping for an OP hero as the damage looked real good on that PTR.
Yeah, absolutely. He people turns out just walk out of the oil.
Funny that.
Yeah, it's just funny about that. And if they didn't walk out of it, it means you haven't lit it on fire yet, which means they're not taking damage. So
the build was very quickly established, particularly the adhesive petroleum enemy standing oil spill when it is ignited are slowed by 30% for 2.5 seconds. Mm-hmm. Standing in when it's ignited. So that means that you don't have to do that trick I was talking about last week where you sort of hold onto your oil, don't light it. You can just go straight in, light it, get regeneration, which is really good now that we've gotten to play with it. That fire regeneration is phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely is. So you're right. It's the few Blazes I have seen are kind of following this build to the T. So yeah, he's a petroleum, grill and kill. Everyone seems to be going combustion, even though Kyle, in true StarCraft bunker history, the bunker was the only thing to receive a balance change upon the release of Blaze, gaining itself 5 more health.
Oh, you know this was a joke, and it was a fantastic one. Well done.
Yes, absolutely.
Lots of people doing the incinerator gauntlets, too, to just make things that much easier. Really, Blaze released with zero elegance, which is kind of, he's just a pyromaniac. He wants to light everything on fire, and people want to do it as fast as possible. They're going to take fuel leaks so they can charge in. They're going to auto attack for flames. They're going to go auto attacks at 20 because it makes them valuable and puts a dot on them. People are just digging it, and that's great. And as far as metas go for release, it's always nice to have a CC tank come out because somebody, normally like those Novas or those weird kind of guys who just play the new releases, are playing something with CC, and it should be a great meta to climb in.
Yeah. I still love his kit, man. I really like the way he plays. It just feels a little undertuned now that he's in the live game.
Maybe it's tough to say, and it's really hard for one tank to take care of everything now because we still have all of our old hyper mobility problems of a sort. We've just sort of solved the invincibility of them with the double support nerfs.
Yeah,
I find Blaze is best alongside something like Muradin, somebody who can go chasing, because Blaze can't. He's got to stay very local and home.
Yeah. I'll tell you what bummed me out the most about Blaze this week, because now he's in the live game. You can actually queue up and not wait forever to play against real people on this hero. I landed my jet propulsion into a charging butcher and just went through him.
Oh, because he's unstoppable.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I was like, oh, what a badass I am. That just made me sad.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that.
I didn't either, but I saw him coming, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's going to be like two bulls just charging towards you. No. He just went right past me and killed my Jaina. I felt dumb.
To me, quite a bit, some autopilot problems, because Garrosh is alive and making it through the draft now as a pick.
Yeah.
Not getting insta-banned all the time.
No, he's not.
And every time Garrosh throws something at me, I Utherstun it. But sometimes that thing's a Johanna, and this did nothing but autopilot.
So you're fighting your E muscle memory?
Well, yeah, because if you're going to throw something at me, make sure it's a tasty treat. Don't deposit Greymane on top of my Kel'Thuzad. Don't put a tank into my team. This seems pretty easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's funky. Have you come across a comp or a anti pick you really want Blaze in?
I think Blaze does really well against Greymane because he controls the dive area for an extended period, which makes him not wanting to invest. On Greymane, you're always looking for your 5-second investment where you can go in, bark as hard as you can, and then use that disengage on the cooldown. Blaze keeps the fire going so long, particularly once he gets to that adhesive petroleum, it's hard to choose when to go in.
Yeah, and it only gets worse at 13 with fuel leak as well, getting even more damn oil on the field.
Exactly. He's got some great, survivability or mix it up talents at 16, but most people are still doing that thermal protection where they get the armor and all. Those are pretty late game talents, which aren't really coming into play right now. So it's really about lots of ground being on fire and that causing issues for people either trying to be too mobile or trying to dive.
Yeah. And then Malfurion with that rework that we talked about last week, he just released as is.
He did. Yeah. And overnight it became good. It was horrible day one, and then it became great. There's a mighty need to watch Grubby in Masters. I didn't think this was going to be an issue. I didn't really consider it. But Grubby is the biggest streamer in Heroes, and he streams for very large portions of the day in EU times too, so it's early morning into our afternoon. By the time Grubby gets a hold of something on his stream and plays it for hours, the decision is made by midday as to what the hero is and if it's good or not. Grubby's also dictating the meta and overnight switched the entire thing to be Chromie Ragnaros. And because Masters are so confused and sort of torn up and wondering what's going on, how can I hold on to my numbers? They just grab. They grab all the info. And Grubby said it, go. And they run with it. So Tuesday, Malfurion, worse than Stukov. Horrible healer. Why would you do this? Take Lucio. Even take Brightwing. It's all the same. Wake up Wednesday. Oh, Malfurion's a god. First pick him. It's been so frustrating because it used to take time. There used to be a wiggle room. And when I was in Diamond, the people telling you these ridiculous things were the losers coming down from Masters. So you'd have some salty Salterson in your draft saying, Chromie Rag are the best, do it. And you're just like, shut up, dude. What are you even doing here? Like, you're just some pissed off, losing guy. Get out. You don't even belong in my league anymore. But now it's like just happening around me.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, I don't think it's just Master players. I'm certainly in that boat right now of like, Sony just doesn't work anymore. Well, there goes my plan. What do I do now?
Right, too. And we feel these, they're not as, directional or punchy, but that's one of the oddities of what's going on. And we're going to talk about this in a moment with some of the structures. Let's talk about Malfurion. What made him good? It's hard work and good numbers, actually, at the moment. I enjoy him. Counting is the best way to do it. Like, you don't have a good tracker. You don't have your World of Warcraft heal bots. You just got to go one heal, count to 5, and then do the next one. Get to about 3. Don't really go for 4 because he's still got some mana issues on your regrowths. Stop at 3 and start that rotation again.
Huh. That's interesting. Never really thought about this. Yeah, never really thought about this game as having rotations.
Yeah, it's actually a really enjoyable kit. I think Trident is still a load of fun, but not just awful. And that's for me. I'm saying that here on this show to stop me from taking it because I love seeing that little guy pop up and I get real excited because he's a summon and he just sucks. I should take something else.
I am also a fan of the Treant, sadly. But well, that's I guess good to hear. I mean, it sounds like even if maybe Grubby's having a larger effect on the game than we would have expected, it's at least it's spreading somewhat usable, positive information.
Oh, definitely. I am not begrudging Grubby at all. I think
you're not begrubbing
him?
You're not begrubbing him?
Yeah. Nice.
Couldn't help myself. Yeah, that is spread like wildfire, man. Ragnaros is all over every game I have played this week.
Yeah. And here's what happened in the really short version. If you make mercs powerful by themselves, people take mercs. And if they're powerful by themselves, people let them go. If they're powerful with friends like our armor-giving knights were, people push with them, but those are usually in the middle lanes. So we had these powerful mercs, and we were taking them in distant lanes so they could push by themselves. But suddenly the buildings got a bunch of damage back so they could take out these mercs. So you have to now send someone with them to make sure they get value. That someone needs to be able to escape, maybe do some decent building damage, perhaps turn off that building in a way. And somebody who's just really good at taking the camps but not interacting with them in any way suddenly falls by the wayside. Also, if you're a late game hero, you have fallen by the wayside because of the current meta. So Sonya, who really blossoms at 16-20, is out. And Uther, who gets his best talent at 20, his resurrection, is out. Malthiel is still in because he's completely countering Dahaka, which is kind of funny. The reason we have no Dahaka anywhere is because of Malthiel. And if Malthiel left right now, that'd be okay because of the meta, but then Dahaka would come back in. So there's kind of like this weird sort of like seal on the Dahaka problem at the moment.
They're keeping each other in check.
Yeah, it's just this weird thing.
Dahaka shows up, Malthiel shows up, Dahaka leaves, Malthiel leaves.
Right, you're just playing Pokemon Red with your friend on the bus.
Okay, makes sense.
Well, they pick an earth, you pick a water, and you just go back and forth. I don't remember.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, water beats earth, electricity beats water. I could keep going. I'll stop now. Anyways, there was a huge patch came in with Blaze and the Malfurion rework, so let's get into it. I'm going to lead off most of these changes with the developer comments. So I don't know, think of it as a decree, and then we'll explain the decree. First up, the devs said, hear ye, regen orbs are benefiting the team that is ahead too much, as they roll their scroll out and inform us of this. So because of that, regen globes have been changed. The total health regen over 5 seconds has been reduced from 11.7% maximum health to 9%, and the total mana regen over 5 seconds went from 7.8% maximum mana to just 7%. So bigger hit to the health, but still, they're not giving you as much. This seems okay to me. How has this felt to you, Kyle? Because I'm still grabbing those orbs, and it still seems to be fine.
Yeah, it's still noticeable. I can really feel that 3% on a tank, particularly Stitches and those sort of big guys. The mana didn't really matter too much. We seem to still have a similar problem. This did help, but ultimately that winning lane is still winning and getting to the buildings, which is the issue.
Yeah, but it's taking longer.
Right.
Yeah, you're not hitting the timings that you may have become used to in the last few weeks. Quite a bit to say on Mercenaries. The developer comments said that pushing mechanics, your mercs and your map events, they didn't really single out a specialist here, are too strong in their opinion, and that game times are down on nearly all maps. And they specifically singled out Hellbats and Knights as doing too well. So Hellbats have been changed. Their defender mode, which is when we're fighting them to steal the camp, the armor shred amount has been reduced from 5% to 4%. That's a 20% decrease. And the base health has also been reduced by 20%. But however, once they're captured and once they're pushing down lane, this is where the interesting things happen. The armor shred was also reduced by 20% when they're pushing. So they're not shredding as much armor as they were before, 20% less to be precise per stack. The base health has been reduced by 20% once again. And then health scaling has been reconfigured in 4 separate areas. And we're going to mention health scaling in 4 separate areas multiple times on today's episode. But you will start to see the pattern just after we talk about Hellbats. So the first bracket of health scaling is between 1 and 5 minutes. And that health scaling has been reduced from 50 to 40. Again, a 20% decrease in that health scaling for the first 5 minutes on Hellbats. But then from in the 6 to 10 minute window, that health scaling has been increased over 46%. In the 11 to 15 minute window, the health scaling has been increased by 50%. And in the 16 to 20 minute window, it's been increased by 88%, Kyle.
So they don't mind them being used to win, and Merc Stack's a thing that we've always done to win the game. Should still be a viable way to do it. You just shouldn't do it in minute 1 to 5.
Exactly. And then the knights got messed with as well. So when they're defending, their spell armor aura amount has been increased by a little over 33%. And then when they're pushing down the lane, that same aura has been reduced by a little over 33%.
Yeah, which I like. It is now 20 instead of that 30. We in Team League really stacked on top of these things, took advantage of them, and picked level down fights while inside the aura. I think of all the sort of changes we've experienced, this is the one that I've been the most okay with, though on Dragonshire, it's still really scary because you can do the double sieges with a knight.
Yes, I agree. But they're a little, I like this in theory. It's a little harder to take, and they're not as nuts pushing down the lane.
And like Spider Queens, knights are great. That has little interaction with the objective. If you take Merc camps on Spider Queen by themselves, they're horrible. There's been a lot of rag lava waves that I've just been like, the gems, why would you do this? As that thing goes across the map and collects them for nobody. You got to be careful on that map, so there's a really good ebb and flow when you take Merc camps.
Yeah, I agree. But, I mean, what are you going to... That's a bigger problem for Dragonshire, right? Like, I don't think any amount of balance is really going to fix it. That's maybe a larger discussion to have about should there even be knights in that bottom lane?
Should they be more exclusive to the middle lanes where there's lots of traffic? Yeah, we can certainly think about these things. Right. It makes you wonder if Mercs in general have been huge issues outside of sort of the siegers, which is why we've seen a go towards item and turret-based Merc camps in our newer maps.
Yeah, it kind of looks like it from what's happening in this patch. And then the Warhead Junction boss got messed with as well. The dev said that the Warhead boss is too strong in the early and mid game when combined with nukes. So they're reining in some of that power as well. The thing from this though, Kyle, is that I never knew this boss was called the Slime Boss.
Why would it be? It's a Locust boss, right?
Yeah, I never knew this. I was going through the patch notes, and I'm like, what the hell is the Slime Boss on Warhead Junction?
I know, I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I literally Googled it, brought up the Heroes Wiki, and I'm like, oh, it's the frickin' Swarm Host. That makes no sense. Why is it called this? Anyways.
Because Swarm Host is its own hero. It's coming. Swarmius, yeah. The Swarm Host.
Fair enough. Anyway, so similar base health manipulations to kind of the health scaling we saw on the Hellbats. So the base health amount has been reduced by 20%. And then when we get into the scaling again, these are those 4 scalings from 1 to 5, from 6 to 10, from 11 to 15, and 16 to 20 minutes. In the 1 to 5 window, that scaling has been reduced by a little over 20%. But then in the 6 to 10, the 11, 15, the 16 to 20, they've actually increased the scaling with the biggest jump happening from 16 to 20 with a 42% increase in the scaling of the health.
It's important to note again that this is only the laner version of the slime boss, if you will, and taking it shouldn't be any different than it's been since the map's release.
Right, exactly. Yeah, this is the laning version, not the defense. And then a very similar thing to the base attack damage. That's also been reduced by 20% in the first 5 minute window. That the scaling's also been reduced by 20%, and then from 6 to 10, 11, 15, 16 to 20 increased in the scaling again, spiking in that late game, but with a 52% increase to the scaling.
So a real targeted, particularly Warhead Junction. And in fact, they said, last week that we were not going to have a map rotation change. They actually did one. It was taking out Warhead Junction, putting in Volskaya in its place. So clearly this map's a bit of an issue.
Yeah. And then on top of that, they made all of these changes to the base spit impact damage, the base spit damage over time, and the acid trail base damage. I'm not going to get into that here. It's in the patch notes. It's also in our show notes if you want to reference it, but I'm not going to get into that.
Things are easier before 5. They are more dangerous after 6.
Exactly. Although in certain cases,
it does get a little weird.
Actually, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because let's just bring it back real fast and let's just talk about the base health scaling on the slime boss, the freaking locust boss. Since there was a 20% reduction from 1 to 5, 6 to 10 and 11, 15 is now more. It's more about making up what it lost in that original 5-minute scaling. You still end up with a little bit at the end, but not a ton. So really the big spike is at the late game, which, as you mentioned at the top of the show, we're not really making it to anymore.
And if you want to win at a boss against me at 20, I don't think anyone's going to be upset about that.
Right.
Nice job on your boss.
Exactly. Everyone's just going to be like, okay, this is how the game should have ended.
Exactly.
It's an honorable death. It's a good day to die. And then structures. We knew structure changes were coming. The devs said that they overestimated the power of unlimited ammo. So they're giving damage to towers and forts. As far as forts are concerned, the gate tower damage to minions, mercenaries, monsters, and heroes has been increased by 33%. Same for the fort damage to all the same characters I just rattled off. Basically everything. And then keeps, same thing, minions, mercs, monsters, and heroes, another 33% increase. Same with the keep damage. The keep gate tower and keep itself, 33% increase across the board. The keep health has been increased from 16,000 to 17,000. And then on, that's it for structures. We'll talk about Towers of Doom in a sec. So what do you think about this, man? I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, is because of these changes, it now takes a little bit longer to secure those lanes.
And something like the keep health increase of 1,000, I saw deaths because of that yesterday, but those are really outliers. That's one guy thinking he can hold on for 2 seconds that he can't, and we miss out. But the damage here was so shocking to so many people. I mean, getting hit by one of these, you really feel it all of a sudden. And this is what really brought in Sylvanas this week.
Yeah, and her stock just went through the roof.
And it's really important to say that we are moving in the right direction. The December patch that we went through that people called the snowball patch was worse in a sense. The problem is that we spent December being frustrated, and like Dark Souls, if you've ever streamed Dark Souls, people have some weird ways. You only have to ever beat anything once. So people are like, you just equip a shield and then unequip it and slip inside the wall and you can beat him inside of the wall. Because the game's bogus, because the game's super hard, people find these really broken ways to break it back. They push back against the developers when they get frustrated.
Well, that's what this was going to be my follow-up, is that kind of seems like what's happening here, because you're talking about how you're not even getting to 20 when the intent of all of these changes was to extend the time we're spending in a given game.
Exactly. And that's what we did to ourselves here. We overcompensated with Chromies, who could get that talent a couple levels early, with Ragnaroses, who could delay and get the game to go later, and of course Sylvanas to take advantage of all this. Heroes like Uther, Sonya that we talked about go out the window because we don't get to the higher levels. So we have a better anti-snowball balance patch here, but we as players have made it the snowball that it is right now. And in particular, quick match is a real rough place to be, because that's where people who are playing ranked say, I'm so frustrated, I need a win at the end of the night, let's stack and crush it. And you fight rather frustrating teams full of butchers and garroshes or whatever your sort of flavor is that you take note of.
Big dumb comps.
Yeah, exactly.
Get that big dumb comp. Before we move out of this, by the way, Towers of Doom as well. The alter respawn time has been tampered with. It's been increased from 90 to 110 seconds.
So there's a map that they actually said, this needs to go longer right here, right now. We can do this by changing the objective.
Right, and that's kind of the luxury of Towers of Doom that no other Battleground has.
Yeah.
You can't 1-to-1 manipulate the time of the Battleground that specifically. If I could that's not a word, I don't think. Anyway.
It's a crazy ride to think about everywhere we've been, particularly when you think of something like Haunted Mines, now, a quick match staple, as it's not in the rank rotation. But we used to, everyone only mercs. The objective's horrible. Everyone only push. The mercs are terrible. Everyone to the boss. The boss is great. And if you don't get the boss, you take that middle night camp, if you remember that version of it. We go through these really wild swings. And I wonder how much of it is actually playing the game that the devs are trying to create, or the game we made for ourselves trying to combat other players who think they're playing the game that the devs wanted to create.
I can't wrap my head around that question, Kyle.
It's a Kylie question for sure.
And then before we move on to hero balance, there was a Battleground rotation update, Kyle.
Yeah, we got that Volskaya back.
We did, and we lost Warhead Junction.
I'm okay with this. It's fine. We're trading one big for another big.
Yep.
Plus, we don't go to C when we don't do late game.
That's actually a huge positive. But I like Warhead better, so still sad. But thank God that's all it was. Just a one map in, one map out rotation. If it was anything beyond that, Kyle, I would have just been on this episode burning it down. Just burning it down.
Good Blaze role play.
Yep. I'm always hot and bothered. Always.
That's my secret, Captain.
Let's move into hero balance. First up is Hanzo. The devs said that they're reducing the spread of scatter arrows so that they're more effective when opponents aren't directly next to a wall. So they also reduced the damage slightly to compensate, and they meant it when they said slightly, dude. So the spread of scatter arrows was narrowed by 20%, but the damage was reduced by just barely 3%. Barely a 3% reduction on damage.
Right. So if you are bouncing it in, people had to be right up against the wall to guarantee that all of those hits would go into the same guy. Now they can fire that shot further out. It can spread more and still hit. Yep.
They also said that they increased the range of natural agility so that it will jump over a wider variety of terrain.
They sure did.
Yes. Yeah. So the range has been increased by 25%. Your range is now up to 10. Also, the cooldown has been reduced from 25 to 20 seconds.
I have seen a Hanzo jump off the bridge over the sky in Sky Temple.
Really?
In that bottom lane? Yeah.
Wow.
That's a big old jump.
I mean, that's kind of rad and kind of what I want from my Hanzo. Like,
Right,
not a Hanzo fan, but if I am playing Hanzo, that's what I want to. I want to be a badass ninja.
It got real dirty with those big, bulky double tree lines, something like the edges around the Bruiser camp. Geez, excuse me. Night camp. I guess it's a Goliath camp on Braxis. Yeah. Those walls be thick.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there were some talent changes as well. Shieldbreaker is gone. Sharpened Arrowheads is now at level 7 from 20. But they also changed its functionality.
Right. Yeah, now gives armor reduction rather than removing all armor.
Right. But that's good. So having access to something like that at level 7 is great.
It's horrible against Uther. I mean, great. It's great to stop Uther. I'm sorry. Did you say I need to stop talking about Uther? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was no, but I was about to tell you that your Uther bias is showing. Because you used the word horrible there.
It is. Well, that's because it was previously Shieldbreaker, which broke shields, which I couldn't give a care in the world about.
Listen, man, I'll tell you to stop talking about Uther when you tell me to stop talking about Sonya.
Fair enough.
All right, cool. We good?
We're good.
Yeah. All right. Bonus movement speed on mounted archery was reduced. Damage was increased on Giant Slayer. We can move on to Nova, I think.
Yep. I think Hanzo got a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, on Nova, basically the dev said, hey, she's probably doing a little too good with those new escape tools and those multiple clones. And they also said that their data is showing that her talent tree is in a very good spot balance-wise, besides a couple of outliers, which explains some of the talent changes in the balance in the patch notes. But they're lowering her base output and compensating by increasing precision snipers damage, and that's exactly what they did. Damage reduction across the board except for her trait. So Snipe's damage is down a little over 6%. Pinning shot damage is down like 4.75%, and precision strikes damage is down a little over 4.5%. But then the trait got bumped up from 5 to 6%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's actually a 20% increase.
Right. So they took her damage out of the easy mode sort of things, put it back in her stackable, not really quest, but your reward for sniping real good, like. And this balance is always very frightening to me, though. What do you do? This isn't lazy design. This is solid design. This is a fine way to go about this. What could you do better, though?
I keep coming back to what Dunk said. It's hard to make stealth heroes balanced.
Yeah. I feel like you take the damage out of the clones just to make room for Sammy to be more special and maybe Belial or some sort of other hero to come down the pipeline. It's just sad when damage goes out of one thing and then like the cooldown increases. Pyroblast damage remains the same, but we've increased the cooldown by 20 seconds.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. I mean, at the moment, I am still personally banning Nova. I don't want to deal with it. There are enough unknowns right now. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing I'm happy about is Lethal Decoy got a clone damage reduction.
Yeah, and that's very much kind of the way I want to see this continue to evolve.
Yeah, that's as I mentioned, and it really hasn't changed. My biggest grievance with Nova is the clone damage. I want to be able to kind of game that or feel a little more rewarded. Like I'm pretty sure that's a decoy. I'm going to purposely take damage so I can figure it out. I don't want to be surprised by the amount of damage I'm taking from the damn clone.
Well, for me, it's an information tool. We don't get to see damage numbers fly over our heads when they're aggressive, which means I don't know what's a clone based on that information.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
The clone does 0 damage, or there is a huge lack of connected damage like with Sammy, because he is in melee. I am taking Sammy levels of damage. I know the real Sammy's here since the rework. That works fine. But Nova's at range, so if 3 are attacking you, you don't really get to make that choice.
Yeah. Speaking of Sammy, he's up next on our list here. And the dev said that, his rework put him in a good position regarding his talent pick and his win rates and his overall performance. But they wanted to continue. They wanted to add some talent tuning changes. So they increased his health to compensate for the fact that he now has to put himself into dangerous positions much more often to deal that damage. So his base health is up. His health regen is up. His mirror images, the same thing. The health and the regen are up on them as well. The exact same adjustments, percentage-wise, anyway, made to the mirror images. And some good talent changes as well. Deflection, the armor increase has been upgraded from 25 to 30. Burning Blade, however, had the damage bonus decreased from 65 to 50%.
The go-to pick.
Yeah. While conversely at level 7, Phantom Pain has got a little bit of incentivization with the damage bonus going from 40 to 45%.
Word on the Wild Wind is that Sammy's going to be a big player in HGC. And also that Dahaka is not dead at all, and Dahaka is going to be everywhere, as he's always been. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody.
No, I'm hearing the same thing about Hanzo as well.
Yeah. It's gonna be... HGC could be really enlightening or incredibly shrouded in mystery. A lot of teams are planning to lead the season with poor strats, so they don't show their hand for later on, because the game has changed so much since BlizzCon.
Yeah, but it's it's still changing though, right? Like,
yeah.
It kind of all depends. Like I said, it could be shrouded in mystery, or it could be very enlightening. Or we could have 2 to 3 more massive game meta shaking changes and it's all irrelevant.
Right. Or the third option, which is everybody just picks like Zeratul Tyrael comps and we all go, nobody's doing that at home. All right, everybody back to Stitches.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that a little unlikely. At least the back to Stitches part.
Back to Murky this week, though. Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
You
Murky's
seen
doing
that
great.
guy's win rate?
Merc is doing great. Pick the
Yeah.
Mercs. The Murky. Yeah. Valera joined Nova in the calm down stealthy scenario of the latest patch. The dev said that they're reducing the duration of Garrote's silence slightly so that all openers feel viable. So that silence duration is down from 2 3/4 of a second to 2.5 seconds.
Still a long time, but at least I can walk.
Yeah. Why do I feel that we're not done with this yet?
Oh, oh, poor Valera sure hope so. Down 17% from their lofty fun times, above 50% now in that 42 hanging out with Medivh.
Yeah. Crippling Poison also had the slow reduced, and then Hemorrhage had the damage bonus reduced. Massively, I might add, from 50% to 30%.
Man, we're both people who enjoyed Valera. Is it safe to say that you would be comfortable not deleting people and you'd still have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to 100 to 0 somebody have fun of Valera. I kind of thought with my health number the way it was that I was going to be kind of a thrally, help control the duders on the enemy team. And instead I got a stealth assassin.
Yeah, I wanted more of a sword fighter or a dagger fighter in the case of Valera. Like, you come out of cloak and you stay there for a while.
Yeah.
Plinking
Invest.
at people. Yeah, exactly. This invest. Kind of not actually too dissimilar from Greymane, which is maybe why they didn't go that route. But,
And I guess we have that capability at 10 once we have Cloak of Shadows or Smoke Bomb, but 10's a long way off these days.
Yeah, it is. And then there's Zero Tool, which is where the team admitted that he's currently the lowest win rate of all of their stealth characters. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. So their goal was to tune up his underperforming talents. Although if he's losing, I would say, why don't you tune up the performing talents? But I don't know. I'm not a game designer.
Well, you can see what they did here. They messed with level 1, level 4, and level 7 talents, which immediately tells you what Zeratul's problem is. Zeratul has to get to 13 so he can self-heal on his auto attacks.
Yeah.
And if you are a melee assassin behind when you get to 13 and they're 16, game over.
Yeah. And some of these changes, like, all right, move unseen. Movement speed was increased. It's a 20% increase. Level 7 warp skirmisher, that damage attack bonus was increased by 33% and change. But at level 4, the passive attack speed bonus on Darkness Descends was doubled, Kyle. Doubled.
Clearly the level's having some issues.
Yes, it is. So, I still haven't seen a single Zeratul in the wild for me, and the stats aren't doing much either.
The Zeratuls I play with do win. They are way too fancy. They're normally Rafflecopters or some pro player doing that Might of the Narazim thing when I'm sitting there going, can we just do Void Prison? It's just easier, but I really like watching you go, so here's a Divine Shield for you. But they're overworking it. They're clearly trying to make it work, and we'll have to see come HGC.
Yeah. And Garrosh, who we kind of talked about a little bit, but I think it's worth bringing it up again. They said that while the changes to Groundbreaker have helped Garrosh feel better to play against, they believe he could use some help with his ability to peel for his team and to control the battlefield. So Groundbreaker, his Q ability, is having the slow amount increased from 30 to 35%, and the cooldown decreased, and the mana cost decreased. So get your Groundbreaker on. Is that a contented dance there, Kyle?
This is my, oh my goodness. We all walk that tightrope of health and understanding each other's cooldowns. So when you take 2 seconds off of Wrecking Ball, there's a lot of dead people fighting a Garrosh.
Yep. Yeah, that's the cooldown decrease to look at, right?
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Now, Into the Fray did get nerfed a little bit by 5 seconds, so you won't be throwing allies as often, but even more enemies thrown.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't the casualty in talents as well. Earthshaker got just a little bit shaved off the top of its stun. It's already a short stun, right? And so it went from 0.6 seconds to 0.5 seconds. But yeah. So you're seeing Garrosh again, huh?
I am quite a bit, actually.
How's it working out?
Oh, it's rough. It's it's part of the snowball, right? I mean, really, when you look at comps right now, there are kind of the four major players: that Chromie, Rag that we've talked about, the Sylvanas, and the Garrosh. And whoever gets the most of those four, really kind of win the game. Because it's early game power.
Yeah, man, the friggin' Sylvanas. If I sound just a little defeated today, Kyle, it was because we had a Battlefield of Eternity game today where our banner just let the bans expire, and our enemy team ended up getting Sylvanas and Vala on Battlefield.
I mean, Battlefield's always been a little like that. It was nice when the Rhaegar was the top damage dealer, because then you could early draft a support.
Yeah, we only drafted a Cassie. It didn't work out.
No, that normally wouldn't. I mean, most people aren't, again, pro players and doing the double damage you expect them to.
Yeah. So that was my point. That was like Bane picking me up over his head and breaking my back. I was just like, I need a break. Well,
and this isn't something you just do. We've been playing this game for a long time. I avoid being too moved by a single game because, just throwing the bones and going, and oh my God, Raynor's the best. Oh, I was beaten by Raynor. I read that out of one quick match. He's the best now. Yeah. So you have to put in these games and you have to watch these trends, and you lose to Sylvanas, and everybody loses to Sylvanas from time to time and goes, okay, that stinks, but 7-minute victories happen. And then it happens again and again. Around that fifth one, you start to go, all right, break time, everybody. We got to fix a problem.
That's where I was at. This was not the first game. This was the last game.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But dude, there's so many damn changes in this patch. Let's do, you always talk about mad meta. Let's actually do mad meta. What the hell in the short amount of time we've had to spend with this patch is really going on? I mean, we touched on a little bit of it here, but I went in and kind of figured we could do it kind of battleground by battleground because it's a little easier to look at trends and stats that way, I find.
Sure.
So let's, in alphabetical order, kicking it off with Battlefield, Garrosh just rocketed up the Battlefield win charts. He's third place overall right now.
Which you can expect. A 2-lane map with very little way to recover the XP you lose. A 2-lane map, you're not going to force someone to lose XP in lane by killing them because both lanes should be covered. Usually we do a solo in the top, and those two players play really, really carefully, trying to murder each other, but really, really carefully. And the bottom guys go nuts. If you kill a guy down there, the soak isn't lost. It's about the XP you get from the kill and that tower you get after it. So Garrosh, early kill potential, naturally has a good place there.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why I'm not mentioning Sergeant Hammer, is because it really hasn't changed. Sergeant Hammer is still on top on Battlefield of Eternity.
And that's kind of a make a comp and league dependent and messy.
It's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Stukov is dropping, but he is still in the top 10 on Battlefield.
Sure, get in those big auto attacks. It's also worth mentioning on Garrosh or anybody who can reposition somebody. Those characters will have higher than normal win rates in high leagues because you are throwing someone into the air and putting them on top of the stun.
Yep.
And the amount of stun that comes out of that immortal is not regulated by Blizzard according to Heroes. That stun is ridiculously long.
All right, this is the question that I came to this episode to ask you, Kyle. Zul'jin is seeing a big surge of wins on Battlefield of Eternity. What happened?
Okay, Zul'jin is bizarre. I have very little explanation for Zul'jin and his current rise in win rates across actually the whole meta. What it seems to be is that with the recent rework to try to make Guillotine and the nerf that went through Guillotine, he actually doesn't have late game power spikes anymore. His power spikes are really gradual, kind of like our Vala. Just kind of, he has them, but they ramp up slowly. And in fact, getting something at level 4 like Amani Rage could be the difference between taking Immortal or not, when someone else, like maybe your Greymane, has to get all the way to 7 before he gets that damage increase talent.
Okay. That makes sense. So it's we didn't get Vala, grab a Zul'jin.
Sort of. And this is happening across all maps. But also remember that Zul'jin has a lot of focus because he has to farm on heroes. So when we're team fighting constantly and we're not interacting with mercs because they got nerfed and we're just trying to get buildings, I mean, Zul'jin does a stupid amount of building damage from a good safe range. And if you put a Sylvanas with that, those two can do the whole thing by themselves.
Also, we again, kind of in the versus Vala scenario. So when I go into Battlefield Eternity, if we don't get the Vala, in almost every case, I'm just like, okay, I guess we're on attack or on defend. Sorry, we have to defend the Immortal rather than try and burn ours down. So if Zul'jin wants to farm on heroes, you didn't get the Vala, you're going to be attacking the enemy team at the beginning of the Immortal phase anyway. Do you like Zul'jin in that scenario?
Yeah, I'd say yes, because Zul'jin's also really good. In fact, I favor him in situations where people are trying to force into you. I find Zul'jin is way more comfortable on D on this map than attack, just because repositioning him is such a bother.
That makes sense.
But you do need to be careful still. Don't go Zul'jin ham like I would certainly like to right now. I'm kind of excited about this stat. We got the Garrosh coming up that just got the buff. There's lots of ways to control your mobility with Blaze. Still all the same problems with Kel'Thuzad and anybody who repositions you. But again, with all those late game guys going and you having a little more early game power, could be a good pick for you.
Yeah. And then I'm looking at, again, while I was looking at Battlefield, I realized how damn high D.Va is. And I haven't really played D.Va much since her launch month. And it's making me want to get back on her. But I haven't seen D.Va played in Battlefield in a very long time. I don't even know what I would do anymore. I don't know what the key is here to D.Va success.
One of the big ones about it is the nuclear option at level 7. Increase the self-destruct detonation timer by 3 seconds. This increases the damage by 70%, which is a big deal, but it's really about the timer. And that's the thing about the lava wave right now. Nobody's getting caught in Ragnaros lava waves for the most part. The camera zoomed out. It helped a lot, actually. I love quick match Ragnaros, and I was really sad. Day the camera zoomed out, my kills went away. People started seeing it coming. However, it means you are basically declaring that you cannot fight in this lane. Hey, we are taking your keep, and you can't not defend it. That's the D.Va right there.
Gotcha.
So you are dropping in saying you cannot take your Immortal. You cannot defend your Immortal, because I am saying no for a full, 3 plus self-destruct, 7 seconds.
That's a lot of burn time.
Yeah. It's a long time to control an area.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to Braxis then. Lunara, been rocketing up Braxis.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, almost 5% increase in the last week.
Huh. I would love to have Lunara. Oh my god. Oh, I just remembered. Oh, I early picked a Stukov this week on Braxis, and my team went Jaina Chromie. And I've never been so sad to see so many sands and icicles fly.
Yeah.
Who's gonna finish anything?
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, the top heroes on Braxis hasn't really changed. Sylvanas was already up there. She's still up there. Your Probiuses, your Rexars, your Gazlos are still killing it in the win rates on Braxis. And this is one of the battlegrounds where I'm not second guessing my Sonya pick right now.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. Cursed Hollow, kind of the same. This is where we're seeing the biggest Hanzo peak, I think.
I wonder if that's because it's just the eldest map and we kind of know mentally all the nooks and crannies.
Well, then
or if it just has good bounce positions.
There's a lot of nooks and crannies, is what I always got to say. You think about all the places that those tributes get tucked into.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where my head went anyway, as a non-Hanzo player.
Yeah, lots of little bushes out by themselves that you can get lost in.
Yeah. Dragonshire, seeing another big surge from Mr. Zul'jin, and a Nubarak. The Nubarak surprises me less the longer I've lived in this. I'm like, well, Dive Meta's coming back, and Nubarak's going to do better.
And a Nubarak's always done well on point control maps because of a Beetle. I'd be interested to know what build is winning out, because if it is a Beetle build, that's really good for anyone who wants to go toe-to-toe with you.
Huh. I can look it up real fast. I have tabs open, Kyle.
Do it, man.
Just got to change this over to Mr. Dragonshire.
And same thing with Zul'jin. Anybody forcing into your range, giving you stacks, taking max damage.
Yeah. I mean, Beetle build is having a decent win rate, but not a lot of games logged.
Only the cool kids do it. I get it.
Yeah, everyone's still doing the old school, your Subterranean Shield, your Underking, your Nerubian Armor.
Survivability in your off tank. It's pretty decent.
Not getting blown up when you're supposed to be the one alive.
Capable to escape and not dying along the ride is pretty good.
Yep. Exactly. Infernal Shrines. Kyle, I have a question. Did we just magically realize that Zool and Gazlo are amazing on Infernal Shrines?
Maybe the meta did. This explains a lot really quick for me, because I didn't see Zool forever until this week. And he was on Infernal Shrines multiple times. All poorly performed, but that's to be expected, because who's really playing Zool at the moment?
But is Zool I don't think Zool is a hero that suffers nearly as much as others if you stay away from him for a little while and just jump back on. He's more of a bicycle in that way.
No, Zool is one of these mental puzzles to me that are just fascinating. What is it about Zool that we're okay with? Like, Thrall misses his wolf. We all go, bad Thrall. Stitches misses Hook. Whoa, bad Stitches. What a horrible Stitches. Zool puts Bone Prison on the wrong target. Nah. Well, Scythe doesn't hit anybody.
Well, what you just talked about was Bone Prison on the wrong target. At least it still did something. Missing your wolf did nothing. Right. Missing your hook did nothing.
But Bone Prisoning Stitches still did nothing, but I guess it feels better.
I think you're getting kind of specific. I feel like most cases, if it's not Stitches, you just immobilize the tank for a little while. You gave yourself some breathing room.
Maybe. I still feel like Zool is really passive play, very unimpactful. You were going to win anyway.
Fair enough. I think that's a fair assessment. Although I like him on Shrines.
Yeah,
Gaz too.
But those buildings do more damage, and your skeletons didn't get buffed, and that doesn't seem the proper meta. So I've seen it. I've witnessed this. I don't know why. I am transfixed.
Yeah. Although apparently you should just play Probius. Nothing's really changed. He's gone up. He has over 6% climb this in the past week to stay at the first place.
Oh, you know what it is? You mentioned Probius. We're talking about Gaslow here. Garrosh, Sylvanas, just go down the line. Ragnaros, Chromie. These are all people that start with their kits. Zool makes his big decision at level 1, really. I mean, how much talent diversity, how different does a Zool play from the other at level 7? Maybe come 16 when they're all stacked up. Certainly 13 because they're going to pick Rapid Harvest or maybe that Echoes of Death. But Zool gets his whole kit at level 1, which means he's good in our current meta. There we go. Solved.
Thanks, Kyle. Thank you.
And same with Probius. Probius, you don't need levels to be completely owning lanes as Probius.
Yeah. Tomb of the Spider Queen. Dahaka just rocketing here. Just over 8% climb for Mr. Dahaka. And this is one of the places where, Murky was doing pretty well on a lot of other battlegrounds. He was suffering on a bit on Tomb of the Spider Queen. Not so much anymore, man. He went from a sub 50% win rate to claiming the 11th place slot in the last week on Spider Queen.
This might be because of a very simple and odd interaction. When Murky throws down his pufferfish, it has attack priority over heroes and the minions in lane. So it could just be as simple as the buildings do so much damage, absorbing 3 attacks off them, let the lanes push and destroy the buildings, whether or not the pufferfish even goes off.
Huh. That's, I never really thought about that, but you make a good point.
I would never say, I would expect this, though, because Murky has to hold on to his gems. Murky dies a bit, loses gems. I'm not a big fan of the pick on the map. Great on Garden of Terror. Then you go ride the Terror. You pick up seeds, they just go into the team's pocket.
Yeah. I want to defend him here a little bit. I feel like if you play differently because you're on Spider Queen, you can still be effective with getting those gems in because of the bubble. Like if you don't use your bubble as frequently in lane as you would on any other battleground, except maybe Blackheart's Bay, I think you can still be pretty effective. It's just you have to play a little more conservatively, which most people aren't picking Murky because they want to play conservatively.
Well, and maybe you're doing like something else on the map that's making everybody look at you. So Murky gets to turn in every 2 waves of gems on a 6 stack. And, that's how it can be played on the map. You're not wrong at all. And I think Blackheart's Bay is a way more bigger bummer Murky map, because then you're watching the ding, ding. Oh, we should go to the turn and then stop the pile of coins that's going to be given to us.
Fair enough. Not in the rotation right now, so who really cares? But
yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then there's Towers of Doom, where, dude, Tychus, out of nowhere, just ding, 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 up to 5th place.
Well, I played some Tychus this week.
So it's you. Okay, all right. We figured it out, everybody. It was because Kyle started playing Tychus on Towers of Doom.
It was. It's completely villainous. It's because Blaze has a stupid big health pool, and his whole kit says, "Don't run away," and you go, "Okay," and he just dies. And it's the kit's on level 1. It's a great early game, and Towers of Doom has always been good for Tychus, and it just got better because of this guy, because of Blaze in the game.
I wish I would saw Blaze picked in my Hero League games. On the opposing team, of course. On Towers of Doom.
So good.
Vikings with one of the biggest climbs on any of the battlegrounds, but still not that many games played. One of those Vikings things. Not a lot of people are playing them, but whoever it is out there maxing out those Vikings games, they're doing well on Towers of Doom.
But in all maps, too, expect a lot more Vikings if we maintain this meta for a while.
Yeah. And then the big outlier, Volskaya. We haven't had a lot of time with this map. So when I was looking at the stats available to us, I sorted by games played. I only looked at heroes that had over 200 games logged, and I've only pulled in heroes that have over 200 games logged and an over 50% win rate. There's quite a few heroes with more than 200 games logged, but a lot of them hurting right now on Volskaya.
Nice pullback.
Yeah. So turns out Kael'thas, you should probably play him and go Convection, because it's doing very well in the last few days on Volskaya.
Makes sense. People gotta cram together.
Mm-hmm. And you can just stand off the pad in the back, safe, throw in your flame strikes. I like it. Lily, the next highest at the moment, 56% with over 240 games logged. Lily's been doing well across the board.
I think if you were to say, point control, make a team that's going to hold it for the longest, I bet you Lily would make that list pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We might fart around and be like, maybe Rhaegar and all that, but no. Like, you want resilient, ungankable supports. I mean, that's what we do in Team League. Anytime we see Valyria Nova, we go, support, off whatever was fancy to Lily. We'll suffer the lack of healing a little bit. Let's do it.
It's a good point. Never really thought of that. It's just like, bait them with a healer they can't kill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Nazeebo, Stitches, Artanis, all sitting at the 53% win rate slot with varying numbers of games played. I like the Nazeebo one because it's one of the highest amount of games logged, still sitting at a comfortable win rate. Varian as well, with even more games than Nazeebo played. And Lucio doing really well as well. Terrible English, Garrett.
I like the Nazeebo here. He needs a place to shine right now, as funny as that is after the last 6 months of his reign of terror.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I really thought he was going to be a lot better after the previous patch when we got all these landing changes, and he seemed to be on the downturn even then.
Very level-dependent hero. Easily zoned out.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't really think about the snowball aspect, where if you're Nazeebo and you're behind, doesn't really work out too well.
How are you going to walk out there versus Sonya or Alarak and get your orb so they get the double orbs? You're still working on your level 1 quest. You got to get 7 maybe before you can really take a camp on your own.
Oh, that's simple, Kyle. You walk out to the orb and you put a zombie wall around yourself.
Yeah, and then Varian spins around you 7 times before it finally goes down.
Yep. Done. I figured it out. So anyway, that's all we brought to talk about with Mad Meta. We need sound effects for that, by the way.
We do. Lots of bells and awoogas and
Yeah, absolutely. I added this in because, as you all know, I'm a raging Blizzard fanboy in terms of their art. I love me some Blizzard art. And we don't talk about art on this show a lot, and it doesn't get talked about in the community all that much. But to the top of the Heroes subreddit this week, actually yesterday as a matter of fact, came a post that was titled, "Is it me or is Blaze's texture really low res?" Which I was thinking to myself before I got on the show. And Blizz Kina Brew, who was a 3D artist on Team 1, got in there and just dropped so many interesting nuggets of wisdom and kind of peeks behind the curtain as to what it's like working as a texture artist or making textures for these heroes. And it's fascinating. I won't go all into it here. Kina got surprisingly technical and learned some new things because it was fun. Kina got in here and explained there's a texture budget, and so you're because there was a comparison of Blaze to Hanzo, and everyone was like, well, look how crisp Hanzo looks, and look how muddy Blaze looks. Blaze must be an old model that's been lingering around, and Kina got in and said, no, it's not true at all. It's just Blaze is larger, Hanzo is smaller. They have the same texture budget, so you're going to notice that. But and the big thing here is that at the end of the day, they're texturing these heroes for the way they look in game from that isometric bird's eye view, and some are going to look a little fuzzier in the store and in your draft screen.
Well, and his surface area is really big, though he doesn't occupy as much space as Asmodan. But one of the really cool tidbits from this conversation is that Asmodan is actually mirrored, so he's not actually taking up as much space as his physical character model does in the game files.
Yeah. So Asmodan's mirrored, which means like that he just drew a center line down his face, which I like to call the Bethesda method, because that's how Bethesda makes every single character, and that's why they look weird. But they did a good job on Asmodan. Yeah. So they just drew one half and then mirrored it over, and that saves in the texture resource, which is fascinating. And they did not do that for Blaze.
No, and they said along the lines of something they couldn't. There were too many moving parts. He had individual movements that made it difficult. They also revealed that Alex Straza, if you have an older computer, like I sometimes play in the living room at night, that fan goes a little nuts when she goes dragon mode. That is because she is worth 2 textures, packets worth of a hero when she goes dragon. She is double dragon, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to pull up a picture of Blaze real fast because screw it. I'm just going to pull this in here. Super professional like. Yeah, he has asymmetrical designs, man. That's pretty rad. So you could tell if he was mirrored because that skull on his chest would have cuts in the eyes in the exact same place, but instead it's an asymmetrical design, which I think looks better. So, cool. I hadn't really taken a chance to look that close at Blaze. That's rad.
Well, and awesome to know, of course, for anyone wondering, it's not laziness. This is really crafted scientific stuff to make sure your computer doesn't explode.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, before we move to our strategy segment, let's thank those of you supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. That's how you and I make a living, Kyle. I mean, not from just this show, but... Yeah, a large chunk of it, actually, a large portion of how we make a living comes from Into the Nexus, and that's because of the fine folks supporting us on our Patreon. So if you enjoy Into the Nexus and you would like to support the show, check it out. On this episode, we wanted to thank Greer, no last name given, Kelnorim, Nicola K, Vic H, and Chris S. Thank you all very much for supporting the show. We appreciate it. And you should go check it out, patreon.com/ITN. Now, let's talk about rocking that early game.
Choose a talent.
Choose a talent.
Talent? That seems generous.
Yeah, no clue what that means.
All right, Kyle. What did you bring us?
So, you may have noticed that we've talked a lot about the early game. That the game doesn't go as late as it used to. And if you play, certainly what I've teached and preached, a late gamey, control-y style that makes you feel like you really won rather than getting one nice little team fight and then sanctifying the core. you got to fix it. It's time to change it up. We got to throw out those guys who got to grind all the way up to 20 and get you something that comes online at 4, 7. Ideally, it's ready to go at 1. So step number 1 right now, pick a solo laner. It's that time. We all got to pick one. I don't really care. I'm looking at Alarak, honestly, because I think he's cool. I also take a big chance of people yelling at me because it's kind of hard to play. And if I mess up, it's really obvious, kind of like our Thrall analogy earlier. But I'm willing to take that risk because it'd be fun for me, and it's a video game after all. So you out there need to pick your own solo laner. Remember, this is a shared XP map. If your top lane and bottom lane loses, it's not just that pairing that is going to be affected. Everybody's affected by the bottom lane winning. If they get one tower down there, you're now fighting in the top a guy with XP tower on his team. And that's a problem. Everybody needs to win their lane.
And I feel like I lost my solo laner in the form of Sonya.
And I would encourage you to use those same skills you had on Sonya to do something a little more meta for now, like Arthas, perhaps.
Okay. All right.
One of your other big things to think about here is your solo laner even safe enough to complete the objective that they need to? I.e. get the orbs in the first place, or get that building damage in that gives you that bonus XP across the team for the first objective, giving you the snowball to win. Arthas has the survivability, the slows, the roots to get himself to those towers and to walk all the way home in most cases. If they send 4 people to get you, you planned wrong. That's a bummer. At least another lane is having free XP or something.
You watch the minimap.
Right, absolutely. Don't die in your solo lane is probably how we should have led this, but we got to pick heroes, so think about how you're going to get back. This also means that if you have increased survivability, you, unlike before, need to go take that solo lane. If you were a Tracer, I know this sounds ridiculous. If you're a Genji, it still kind of sounds ridiculous. You don't have a quest to farm at 1. There's nothing you have to do. So go take that solo lane. It's a bummer. I know you want to be zipping around that middle fight because it's fun, but you have the enhanced survivability through your escape to get out of a gank if you were ganked in that bottom lane, meaning the XP continues to flow, and maybe even win your fight.
Yeah, and to save the emails on the tweets, you're saying if you find yourself in that scenario, go for it. Don't necessarily pick Tracer as your solo laner, but know that you can fulfill that role if it comes up.
Right, this is really an evolution of our kind of fall conversations and summer conversations about questing. Quests have not left. All these changes have happened around other changes that happened in the past. Questing on something like Gul'dan. This guy needs to be in that lane. He's got to be center. Same with Kel'Thuzad. They got to get stacks. And they're not going to go take that lane. I would rather Gul'dan take the bottom lane. Absolutely. He's got a self-heal. He's got a big health pool. He's got great lane clear. But he's got something to do. And you need to notice that and make your way down there. By the way, don't notice that if you're the sport. Just let it go. Just let it rot. It's not your job.
Not your job. Not your job. You were not hired for this. Not in your description.
So how would you change your play in something like Zul'jin? Well, obviously you're not going to get any building damage out. You're best on defense. You have a self-heal. That's a great choice as well. You're just going to play on your half of the map, never extending onto their half of the map. If you are lane clearing, you're not. You let it push to you, let that orb reach you, then clear it, get your orb. Don't clear it out in the middle where they get double orbs, then reach your wall with double regeneration going on. So a little bit of a stylistic choice, as well as actual healers or heroes out there that can take on this role directly.
Gotcha. Now we talked a lot about popular cheeses, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to revisit that a little bit? We talked about Sylvanas, Chromie, Ragnaros. Who else is up there?
We talked about Garrosh a little bit in the 4-stack kind of thing, but Illidan is really doing this well right now. He has a global, just like your Falstad, but Falstad benefited a little bit from that double support. Someone was able to touch up his little chicken body. Illidan's a bit more survivable, can solo the lane pretty good, take that Merc camp, but mainly, and here's the big thing, because the game is so short, the global on Hunt that comes online at 10 means you can take a Merc camp, join the team fight, and that Merc camp gets value because you joined a team fight, usually with a level lead. And that's where you're going to win the game anyway. So think about those sort of big moves. Like not I took a Merc camp and we won a team fight. Didn't that feel nice? Like that is the game winning moment. You need to transform your thoughts a little bit.
my thought is transforming into, oh my God, should I play Illidan? Because that sounds like a lot of fun and like a decision I know when to make.
It is really fun. And if you can recognize good hunt targets, if you see people out by themselves, I mean, a lot of people are going to do things in this meta like try out Zagara. Zagara's highly gankable, often out by herself doing merc camps, has no real escape outside her creep. She's dead in a lot of these current meta cases.
I love Zagara. I love playing her, and I love ruining the day for the other person playing Zagara.
Well, great. Do it. I mean, for me, like in my head, I'm like, hang on. Okay. So I need somebody with self-regeneration, somebody who denies ganks, somebody who has a 10 that does building damp. His name is Raynor. Raynor with Hyperion does all these things.
Oh, God, this is what, week 3 in a row at least where Raynor has come up in a positive light?
I'm just really excited for it. He has above Vala win rate. That's not a big deal. It's been that way for a long, long time. People just hate seeing Raynor, but seriously, he is really good right now. I'm not doing it. I'm not playing Raynor in Masters. I don't want that to be a thing. But because I'm not going to piss off everybody around me for no reason just because I want to. But
I'm gonna.
Like, in a vacuum, like, let's open our minds a little bit. This is actually really good right now. I mean, look at something like Jaina, too. That also has a really big impact in the meta right now, but has to farm all the way to get her quest done first in that middle lane with nobody soaking the bottom. Like, these guys who don't have to farm are really hot commodities, and there's very few of them left.
Yeah, and you're filling in roles, man. You're filling in slots that are being left open. Not in my games, because people keep like taking Rexar for some reason. But
there's one more trap you got to be careful of right now, and it's a sad one. It's like what's on Leoric. Leoric Skeletal Swing gets a cooldown reduction if he hits a hero. So when you're selecting your solo laner, don't pick Leoric. People are really tied into that middle fight. They want to make it last a long time. You're going to notice, hey, the bottom's open. I'm going to go soak that, and you run down there. But your lane clear sucks unless you're dueling somebody, and you don't win most of the duels. So you got to be real careful when picking these reset on hero hit heroes.
Gotcha. So no Li Ming.
Well, that's a kill, and that's a little bit different because it's not tied to your lane clear.
Gotcha.
But I've seen a lot of Li Ming. I had to fight McIntyre's Li Ming this week, and that was just kind of like, what's my team supposed? They weren't prepared for this level of play in their faces. So in my opinion, my humble opinion being, I only fought McIntyre and Li Ming, and that was the only Li Ming I saw all week. Li Ming's a god. I have no information.
Fair enough. Yeah. Although at the moment, I got to say, seeing more Nubarak and I'm seeing him win, and the stats are backing it up. I don't like Li Ming in an Nubarak meta.
No. And Nubarak has that cocoon, which is a team-winning fight. You win that fight, and you can go take a game. Real assertive. I mean, Nubarak's in a great place. Compare him to Varian. They both want to do the same thing, go in and lock down, but Varian has to get to 10. So when you're putting this together for yourself, we're not going to go over every character today, but you can kind of start to feel where I want you to go. All right, pick and Thrall. Pick the lane clear talent because you're clearing lanes, not stacking the middle. If you're stacking the middle, you pick the stack talent, right?
Yeah. All right, last personal question then.
Okay.
This hero has been almost finding its way into my hero stable again because I'm seeing him climb in the win rate. When should I look to take the Malfurion? I think he fits into this. He fits into this, get an early lead build.
Yeah. Malfurion's an odd one because that whole merc it's tough to say because he does win a lot of the solo matchups. His ult is still incredibly powerful in a team fight scenario. We used to pair that with Uther. We used to pair that with Lucio, and Lucio hasn't gone anywhere. It's not obvious. And based on your league, you can't always trust your healer. So that's where I sort of go flat on Malfurion.
All right, man. Last week, I was trusting everybody. That trust has evaporated.
Well, things changed, and our numbers changed, and everybody starts playing a little off. I mean, I died this week so many times, like 7 deaths in games, and that's not a thing that I aspire to be.
I don't think it's a thing anyone does, Kyle. Maybe Uther's.
Yeah, maybe Skeleton Kings because it was totally worth it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's a dangerous world out there right now.
Yeah.
And when you hang out on that thread like Malfurion does, self-regenerating dive assassins, it's dangerous. So I would say find something counter. You can't blind pick Malfurion anymore. You gotta find that counter because you can't blindly take merc camps anymore either.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all right. So try and rock that early game. Kind of rethink what you've already learned. Spent the last three some odd weeks learning. Consider those meta picks.
And allow those to farm around you who need to, and don't let someone who shouldn't be in a solo lane be in that solo lane, because that's the real reason you lost. We lost a game in Team League this week because we had Lili fight Tassadar in lane.
Parting question, talking about all of this kind of a personal adjustment you have to make. What was the big change you made this week? Is there one you can point to?
I haven't decided yet, honestly. This at the start of the week, I was a Uther Grey main Varian main. Varian being only taunt, really. But early picking a tank right now is really good because it doesn't give away what you're going to do. People don't know which Varian you're going to do. So it's a great early pick that if everyone hasn't shown anything, you don't know what's going on.
Varian's still
Nubrak in that same way.
Varian's still my go-to when they're like, we need a tank and I'm not going to tank. And now I'm going to be going back to him even more because I'm not going to be stamping my foot in the ground about Sonya as much.
Greymane, though, is a hotly fought commodity and Uther's out. So I'm in the market. I was saying I was feeling the market coming. This really threw it. Maybe I'll go Rag because I've really been enjoying that in quick match, but he has connection issues. He doesn't really have that big of a movement speed increase. He's best against double tank, and you can blow up there because double tank can be really powerful in your face. I mean, with the Sammy thing going on, I'm kind of curious to see what happens with HGC over the weekend, and if that's something I want to invest in. But basically, it's get good time. And it's not the time for me to be grinding out ranks because be grinding the wrong direction. I'm confused. I'm lost. I know what it is. I just need to shop.
All right. Well, that's fun, right? Who doesn't like shopping?
Oh, dude, this is all like it's such a roller coaster because my first reaction is always video game. I was good at you. Why would you make me feel bad? Why would you make me feel like I'm bad at you? I've got a great rank. I'm very proud of the time I put into you. Why would you do this? And then like half an hour later, I'm like, oh, I get to change my draft. Oh my God. My chat's going to be so excited that I don't just pick nothing but Uther anymore. Oh, shopping. I love it.
There's definitely a silver lining in that regard, right? And especially when you play a lot of games. It's like, well, it's not stale anymore.
Yeah.
Things have certainly
out the
shifted.
window.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
like, honestly, Cassia. Like, after seeing that Cassia, Kel'Thuzad, like, I don't know where I'll go, but I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna skip emails this week. It was a thick episode with all those patch changes and whatnot, but keep them coming. itncast@gmail.com is where you can send those emails. But I think we're going to wrap this episode up. We've got to thank our badass patrons again, supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN, as well as our Patreon producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, and we have a new one, Dirk. Thank you, Dirk, you generous man. We've also got swag. You can get Into the Nexus t-shirts over at shirts.amove.tv, and we have custom etched glassware, pint glasses, stuff like that at etched.amove.tv. Go check that out. Make sure you join us next Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/amovetv for our 200th episode. Unless guests somehow push it further, maybe we'll have like a 199.75 or something.
Oh, no.
I don't think that will happen, but I wish we had something to share with you, but we have to keep it under wraps for now. So anyways, join us for our 200th and celebrate with us. Follow us on Twitter at ITNcast. We got to thank Gorath for our rockin' intro music and BrianGriffithMusic.com for our outro music. Kyle, where can folks find you?
You can find me over at twitch.tv/Kyle Fergusson, where this weekend is still Team League and Divinity 2, but HGC's firing back up, so there may be a bit of a schedule change on its way. I'll keep you guys posted.
Yeah, a lot of esports happening right now. Like, Overwatch League just started.
Oh yeah. We didn't talk about that. I mean, granted, there's more than enough heroes-centric
Yeah.
stuff to talk about today.
Dude, believe me, if it was a quiet week, I would have been more than happy to chew the fat about Overwatch League for a little bit because I watched all of it last night. I had a good time. It was fun to watch.
I mean, I've been to a fair. I know I'm the oddball, but y'all are crazy. The Harry Potter ride at Universal Studios is the most motion-sickening thing on earth. And I think I found a replacement. It's called Pro Genji.
That is my single biggest critique. They need to just stop it with the first person views, except for replays. I think like instant
I mean,
replay.
does that wheeze you up? Are you immune? Like,
I'm immune
what is the
to it,
normal,
but
non-lactose intolerant lame boy.
I'm immune
Get
to
out
it,
of this.
but that doesn't mean I like it. Whenever they pull back into like a not quite an isometric view, but a wide shot, or we're looking at third person follow cams. That's how I prefer to watch it. I wish they would use those views much more. And then because after every match, when they're setting up, we end up watching replays of the best plays of the game anyway. So why not save the first person view for that and make the actual live game easy to watch? I don't know. That's my biggest concern. Other than that, I don't really have any complaints. I thought the production was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful stage, great production. Curious to see what HGC does, but I'm not expecting us to get this treatment. Overwatch is in a league of its own.
Right. This is the single biggest. I don't have a better word to say it other than gamble for Blizzard, right? Like they're pouring so much into this. It's just it's unlike any other esport they've ever even attempted.
And it's late, but correct, which is very odd for Blizzard too.
What do you mean?
Well, they've been pretty fast to embrace esports in the past, but it was so jank. It was even GSL, StarCraft, or Home Story Cup, or these things that they would retweet but not really be a part of. And HGC kind of got going as this Twitch thing. And granted, Overwatch League is on Twitch, but oh man, it is really, really its own beast.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You're right, but I've been impressed so far. I've been enjoying it, and I'll be watching it tomorrow night at a watch party at Full Sail University. So that'll be interesting.
Oh, awesome!
Go Florida Mayhem! Go! Please do better than you did in the preseason. Please.
Florida Man.
Florida Mayhem, but I like Florida Men. Florida Men, that'd be
Florida
good.
Man, I like that.
And now Florida Men. Yeah. Anyways, hey, I'm on Twitter at Garrett Art. All the podcasts are daymove.tv. I would recommend Week Sauce, spelt like days of the week, with Kyle and myself. The same two of us from this show talking about anything but Heroes of the Storm.
It's true. This week we discussed violins and Blade Runner.
Yeah, there were some other things in there, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what I remember.
I believe our favorite Gundam also came up. But whatever the case is, go find it. Week Sauce, all one word, spelt like days of the week, anywhere podcasts can be found. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Into the Nexus. We'll see you next week for a monumental a round number. We'll see you next week for a round number. Yeah. Until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.
All right. That's a